think if I were going to start with sharing my testimony, I think I'd have to start at the scariest moment of my life. You know, kind of, kind of like you did, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like you did. You know, a moment of absolute terror and full of doubt, right?
Yeah.
Um, Scariest moment of my life was the 3 or 4 seconds between finding my wife who'd taken her own life and realizing I didn't hear my daughters and being afraid that she took them with her. These hands down, this shook me. Like, don't even know how I ran to the room. It was on. It was almost like he lifted me because I couldn't have been walking. And realizing they were still with me, or at least they were still with me. Yeah, that's where I have to start.
Yeah.
Just because that embodies everything else. He wasn't just right there with me. He was actually carrying me.
Yeah.
And I don't even remember the ride home. Like, a friend, the police showed up and EMTs and all these things. And all of that is really a blur. All that is really a blur. And it didn't even seem real. It's like you're watching it happen on TV.
Yeah.
And then this old lady that lived on our street, she couldn't speak a lick of English, walks into the driveway and asks me in Spanish what's wrong. And that's when all of a sudden I snapped back, like, this really happened. And I had to tell her in Spanish that my wife was dead.
Yeah.
And I got home. We had just moved from Sheridan to a different place, and got back to Sheridan that night and had to tell Jenny's family. They had already, police had gone and told them, but they hadn't seen the girls. They hadn't heard it from me. You know what I mean? They hadn't heard it from me. And my parents were already there. I don't know how all these people. I don't even have a recollection of time. I don't even remember what time this was. I remember when I walked in the house and found her. It's 3:19 in the afternoon. I remember that vividly because I looked at my phone to call 911, and I remember saying 3:19. And I have no idea when I got back to Sheridan, but we were sitting around the dinner table. I'd just gotten the girls put to sleep. And here's why coaching and culture are so important to me. And why coaching is so important. And why it's so much bigger than winning and all these silly things that we celebrate. Because my mom asked me, we're sitting at the dinner table. me and my mom and my dad and my stepmom. And my mom looks at me and she goes, "What are you going to do?" What a question.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just practical, it's philosophical even. What are you going to do? And I kid you not, the first thing that popped in my mind was something my college rugby coach used to say to us every day. Get on the line. So simple. So simple. 4 words. Get on the line. Are you hurt? Tough. Get on the line. Are you tired? Tough. So what are you gonna do? Yeah, I had no choice, right? And so I told her, I'm gonna get up in the morning. I'm gonna raise my babies by myself because I'm gonna be the best dad ever. That was actually something Jenny said to me in her letter was be the best dad ever. And she was sorry she wouldn't help me and be with me to walk him down the aisle. But she knew I could do it. And if I don't go through that, I'm not the coach I am. You know, so many players I've seen go through things in their life that should just absolutely break somebody. And if I had any influence whatsoever, it's only because God allowed me to go through all of that. It's only because of that. Those are the things we don't see when we're going through the times in our life where our true resolve is tested. We don't see the why, right, until we come out the other side of it. But who we have to be to fulfill our purpose is only built in those times. Uh, I don't know about you, but like when you were a kid, you daydream about what you're going to be when you grow up.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
every kid does that, right? I want to be a doctor.
Mhm.
I want to be a professional football player. I want to be a professional this or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I can vividly remember being a teenager, and maybe I was a dorky teenager, but I remember being a teenager sitting in church and going to the altar to pray and begging, pleading with God to let me live long enough to be a good husband and father.
Yeah.
So here was my chance,
Yeah.
Here's my uh you said earlier, God, take this cup of suffering from me. And boy, I prayed for that so many times. Uh I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that I thought about just following her because
Yeah.
it was it was too hard.
That's something that when I was a kid, I'd hear people say, "No, I couldn't ever imagine somebody doing that. Why would you do that?" And all this kind of stuff or whatever. And I'm like, man, after living for 33 years on this world, I feel like if you hadn't thought about it, you hadn't gone through it yet, buddy. It's coming.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Right.
because there's so many dark things in this world.
Mhm.
There's so many,
Mm.
and there is evil in this world, and it has its purpose too. That evil has its purpose, and
Mhm. Mhm.
it'll find you at some point. If it hadn't found you yet, it'll find you. And
That's right.
to me, that in itself is another grace because it's like, Lord, I know it would be easier in a lot of ways to just want it to be over and being in those dark places like that and
Mhm.
you know leaning into him. That's the only thing that saved me the few times, you know that's been a thought or whatever. Him being there and just saying, Lord, you got to hold me, because if you don't hold me, I'm going to fall to
Mhm.
pieces. I'm going to
Mhm.
fall to pieces.
Mhm. Um,
So
I,
what,
you know,
when you were going through that time, what and a lot of times time is the answer. It just takes time sometimes. And you don't ever really get over things like that. There's certain things in life you just
right.
don't. But what were things that you did or that happened that allowed you to build your callus from that?
Mhm. I've complained a lot in the past about
Oh, I thought you were just
well
saying that. I've just
about a lot
complained a lot.
about a
No,
lot of things but um the lack of community that I had where I was forced me. When that was happening, I saw it as a curse, not a blessing. But the lack of community we had just moved, brand new place,
yeah,
brand new job, brand new employers, and there were just a few people that really supported me, that
yeah,
would help me with the girls, and just I know people that God just picked up and placed in my life because I had
yeah,
to have them. But there were twice as many that were there at the time. I saw them as I didn't see the blessing that they were,
yeah,
because they forced me to get on the line. I didn't have a
yeah,
choice. It was I mean, to the point of even being written up at work because I used all my sick days to bury my wife.
yeah,
And so I had to take my daughters to the doctor during my plan time, and I got
yeah,
written up for that. And it made me very emotionally hard at the time,
yeah,
but maybe that's what I needed. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Maybe that's what I needed. Um, but I ran from God, honestly. I ran from God in that time. I was so angry, you know. Uh, and I prayed, but I told him I will not worship you. I'm not going to do it because you let this happen to me. I know you're there, but I'm not going to worship you. And I just felt so alone.
Yeah.
When it comes to loss, I lost Jenny months before she actually left. So it's like it was a steady building up of this callous, this loneliness that I had to learn how to overcome,
Mm-hmm.
And then I met this blonde.
Yeah.
And you never guess where she asked me to go with her. Church.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, God, I see what you're doing.
Yeah. Oh, funny. Good joking. Good. That Holy Spirit, man, he's got a sense of humor. It drives me wild sometimes, but
yeah, right. But
yeah.
Building a callus, it was actually opening my eyes to see that he was there with me.
Yeah.
Making me go through the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Shaping me physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically. Hardening me. Not in a bad way, not in a bad way.
Well, it's just
Battle
battle
testing me.
tested. Yes.
Battle
Yes.
testing me.
That's what
hardening my will.
I've always looked at, and I know I'm this way, but I feel like most men, I feel like most ladies, they can fall in love with the Lord. They can be wooed to the love of the Lord. Men, we have to be broken.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've got to, it's got, because if not, then I'm going to try to fix it myself, right? Like it's all the things,
Mm-hmm.
And it's the things that we as a society talk about as good things, hey, you got to be self-reliant, you got to do the things, and you got to, you got to go and all the stuff. But it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, I can't do it all by myself. And if I try to do it, I'm going to break. And when I break, what else is left? Well, it's the Lord. And it's like, if that's what's left when everything else is broken, even when I'm broken, then it's there when I'm not too.
Mm-hmm. There's a
It's
great,
there when I'm not too.
yeah. There's a great worship song that I heard this week, and I've heard it before, but boy, when he said these words, it just smacked me right in the face. Rock bottom is a firm foundation.
Yeah. Yeah. When did you feel like, was there a moment after that had happened where you kind of felt like you could breathe again? Because I know when I've gone through times of turmoil, and you're being held underwater, there, you try to just have a good day.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a good day, like, man, that was nice. But then most likely that next day is a bad day. And it might be a bad week. It might be a bad month. But at some point there comes times where it's like, hey man, I haven't had a bad day in a long time. Like, was there a time or a moment that you realized that?
I remember exactly. I mean, it's so vivid. I prayed every night because God was he was the only, who else is going to listen? He was all I had. I said, okay, I'll make you a deal. I'll stay. I'll stay. But you got to send me somebody. You got to send me somebody that's going to love my girls more than they love me. That's it. That's my one request. And the first day I met Candace, she doesn't know me from Adam. And I had to pick up my girls. They weren't even 2 yet. They were still babies. And I was like, hey, I've got to go pick up my daughters. You know, I know that's like real heavy to throw on you, but hi, nice to meet you. My name's Carrie. I'm a widower and I have daughters. You know, want to go on a date. Yeah. That's not a lot of people lining up for that. And picked them up, put them in the back seat in their car seat, and they hadn't eaten yet. It was like 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. So it's like, okay, I got it. Sorry, we got to stop and I got to get them some food. And so pull in McDonald's. Hey, what do y'all want to eat? McDonald's. Of course you do. Get them some chicken nuggets.
Yep, Golden Arches.
Yep. Kind of like your friend coming and going, all right, he's going to be fine. I'll see you guys later. You know, she climbed out of the front seat and into the back with them and tore their chicken up and fed it to them. And just the symbolism of my prayer being answered.
Yeah.
That was just for me. You know?
Yeah.
He did that just for me. So you go, see, I'm right here.
And I hear you.
I hear you.
You know, and if we didn't know each other, I'd never know any difference. She loves those girls. I mean, loves them.
Yes, she does.
With her words or actions. I mean, I wouldn't have known.
She's the parent I wish I could be every day. And I know, hindsight's 2020, right? I think back to, it's so easy to see all the bad that happened with that, like it's still traumatic for me to think about, walking into my home. You ever walked in somewhere and you just knew in your soul something is so wrong?
Yeah.
Something really bad has happened. That's what it was like to walk in and find Jenny. And I think, I know, God uses everything for a purpose. But so many things have happened throughout my life that I've had to be prepared for immediate bad news. And I think he used that
Mhm.
to get me used to shock.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, hey, you know what has hit the fan.
Mhm.
It's time to get on the line.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Because, in I guess it was 2021, I got COVID real bad.
Yeah.
And I was fully awake for the doctor to tell me, hey, you guys discharge me this afternoon? And he said, you've got a 40% chance of walking out of here, period. And I was like, okay.
So
Do
what's
you
the
know
top
me?
table?
Yeah, right. Do you know me? That's not something they're
40's
going to
good
say.
odds.
They're going to say, yeah,
That's good odds, Doc.
right. So,
You don't know the rest of the game pieces.
right, yeah, and that might, and that's pretty heavy news, right? But
Yeah.
he'd battle tested me.
Yeah.
He'd battle tested me, and anytime we go through those things, anytime, that's why they're called testimonials, right? Because it's a story of your tests,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And from that, I coached that year on a golf cart with an oxygen tank.
Yeah.
But the biggest blessing was not just to be completely restored physically and brought home, because I pleaded with God. It was a lot different this time. It was like, you take me home to my family, and I'll shout your name from the rooftop. And he gave me the platform to do it. That was the biggest blessing. That's where I was going with that. I got interviewed by newspapers and podcasts, and I made sure the first words out of my mouth is, God is so good.
Yeah.
And he's the only reason why I'm sitting here right now,
Mm-hmm.
But we got to be battle tested sometimes first.
Yes. And we forget that, when we go through hard things, most of the time it's just preparation for the next.
Mm-hmm.
And even in that, last spring was really hard for me, professionally, and I was worried about a lot of different things. And finally, it was almost like it's like he had to get a little bit louder, like we were talking about earlier. Like, hey, man, like, be still and listen.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, have you not been in worse places? And have I not given you better than what you had then now to replace what you had? Like, why are you worried about these things that aren't nearly as callous building as what we've been talking about? And it's like, a lot of times, when we go through those things, it's to prepare us for those other things that are coming up, that if we don't go through the harder part first, or a hard part, we can't get through the harder part.
Mm-hmm.
And and we talk to our athletes about that all the time. Like, hey, we're going to teach you how to sprint, so that way you can sprint in a game when you got 5 other things going on. But if you can't do it by yourself, doing on the one thing, we're not going to be able to build up to that. And the Lord does the same thing to us. Hey, we're going to take care of this little thing first, and then we're going to add something to it, and then we're going to add something to it. That way you can handle this big thing, this bigger responsibility, or go through this bigger change. And then that change is going to take you on to the next. But you got to go through those things.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
it's never fun to change.
Right. And this is the mission of good coaches, right?
Mhm.
Is to transcribe this for our players,
Yeah.
because for many, they haven't lived those moments, so they don't have the experience to draw from,
Yeah.
of what real resilience looks like.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm so thankful for the. I mean, I've had some, boy, let me tell you, I've had some bad coaches, real bad coaches. I mean, racially abused me, but I've had two that, in my darkest time, their words were what the Holy Spirit brought me,
Yeah.
and He put them there for that reason, because He knew it was coming, and
Yep.
He knew I had to draw from that, right?
Yep.
And like I was saying, for coaches that want to make a difference, this is what really building your players is. It's equipping them physically, psychologically, emotionally for what's next.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get stuck on the technical and tactical. They're going to get them ready for what's next, and hopefully they'll get a college scholarship, and that's great and everything, but they're going to live a whole lot more life outside the line than they do inside of it.
Yes.
And that's why this is my mission. That's what I feel my mission is, to get that point across to coaches, and to exemplify that,
Yeah.
for coaches. And I know you're the same way. I'm telling you, man, we're cut from the same cloth, brother. It's the most
Kindred
important thing.
spirits.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's, and is that culture building? Yeah, absolutely. It's culture building,
Yeah.
but it's bigger than that. It's bigger than that. That's just the culture is a brick in the foundation.
Yeah.
Foundation is what we really impart to our
Yes.
kids. Yeah. And that's what I do. I'll do some crazy stuff, with our players. Like, I brought in the National Guard and put them through
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
U.S. Army military
The
test,
workouts. Yep.
but then we debriefed, after that, and I asked them like two big questions. The first one was, what'd you learn about yourself
Mm-hmm.
through doing that? And the second was, what'd you learn about everybody around you through doing that? And me,
That's such a big question.
oh, bro,
Those
yeah,
are so big.
yeah. And she can't weigh 90 pounds.
Yeah.
And she was having to drag 100-pound sled 40 yards.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was eating her alive. But she did it. And
Yeah.
when asked, what'd you learn about yourself? She was the first one. Hand shot up. I can do hard things. I said, yes, baby, you sure can.
That's right. That's right. Amen. We don't have any hot water in our field house right now. And so I have to tell myself that every time I take a shower there. I can do hard things. I can do hard things. I can do hard things. Because that shock, this, And what's funny is in my mind, I'm like, okay, just remember being a kid and turning over in the river. It's not going to be any colder than that. It's not going to be any colder than that. And you survive. Like, it's going to be fine. But that's a mental callus, right? Like you've already seen, like, hey, I can survive these difficult things because of other difficult things that I have. And they can they can have that confidence of I'm able to survive. I'm a survivable I had the ability to survive through difficult things. You know, that's so good. That's such a great life lesson.
That's right. To survive. Yep. To survive. Yeah. And, culture and building those things in our kids, it's no different than strength conditioning.
Yeah.
You got to, you got to microdose it.
Yeah.
You got to increase the intensity little by little.
Yeah.
As you cause adaptation. I was preaching this to my kids this week. Lexi, my daughter, one of my daughters, that power lift. We were doing some APRE work this week. APRE 6.
There you go. Oh, that was tough.
Right. And Lexi's got two big plates and a quarter on each side.
Yeah.
Repping it. And the others are working on a quarter on each side.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my gosh, how can she do that much? I said, you know what she started with? The same thing you did. The bar.
Yeah.
And you'll wake up one day. You'll wake up, and you'll have two plates on each side.
Yeah.
And you'll wonder how you got there. A whole lot of hard work.
Yep.
Yeah, a whole lot of hard work. And we're the same way, right? We're the same way. God, how am I going to? God, how am I going to make it through this season in my life? God, I see this big financial thing in front of me and it scares me to death. How am I going to do that? Well, dummy, what have you been doing the whole time? Trusting, right?
Yep.
I needed to hear that from myself as much as I needed to say it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, is a lot of this stuff that we're talking about, a lot of people would define that as, either mental, physical, emotional toughness. And I got asked by a coworker of mine. He's the head basketball coach at our high school, and I'm blessed, and I'm wording it that way because it is a blessing. I'm blessed to get to work with him in a PE class, and it's just me and him. And we were sitting there and we were talking, and Coach Olson and I, we've gotten to where we'll one of us will ask a question, and then we just get into it, and it's like having a little mini clinic every day, which is really heart filling. And he said, hey, how do you develop toughness? And I told him, I said, I don't believe in toughness anymore. I don't think that that's something that you develop. And he kind of, and he's like a 30-year vet. He's been coaching almost as long as I've been alive. And he said, well, you're going to have to explain that. And I said, okay. I said, I don't believe that mental toughness is something that I can develop in somebody. I said, I believe that mental toughness is an act of love. Toughness is an act of love. Whenever you go into something, whenever you're going through a hard time or you have to try to achieve something that might be a little over your skis or whatever, if it's just for you, you're going to stop. When it hurts enough, you'll stop. I said, and we're in a PE class, right? So in our PE class, none of the athletes are in our PE class because your athletic period is your PE credit or whatever in the state of Arkansas. I said, look at all these kids. I said, would you say any of these kids are tough? These are tough individuals. You look at them and say, that person is tough. Whatever we throw at them, they're going to be able to do it. No problem. He goes, absolutely not. And I said, you're correct. I said, not a single one of these kids looks tough to me. I said, but most of these ladies in here are going to have a kid one day. And when people ask people, who's the toughest person you know, who do they say? Their mom.
Mom. Yep.
Mom is the toughest person I know because mom 100%. Sacrifices herself and what's best for her for me. I said, that's toughness. Toughness is an act of sacrifice. I'm going to go put somebody else or some other people in front of myself, my own wants, my own needs, and my own feelings, and I'm going to do what I need to do in this moment for them. That's what toughness is. And this is coming from a strength conditioning specialist. I'm a strength coach meathead. I don't believe toughness is built in the weight room. I don't believe it. because I've seen guys who are strong that are not tough. I've seen
Mhm,
guys that are
mhm,
great football players that belly up when things get hard. And it's because they don't love somebody else. They love
mhm,
them, you know? And so to
mhm,
me, through these testimonies and testimony in general, like that is built when you have no other option but to love somebody else and to understand that like that's what pulls you through those hard times a lot of times. And it's Christ that's given us that example, you know, like I had to go through that hard time because it had to change who I was fundamentally as a person, because who I was at that time fundamentally was not good enough for what Christ has called me to do with my life. And that ends up shaping, for sure the next 6 years of my life, but definitely probably even further on. That's going to change who I am and what I do and how I do it.